Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Lit Podcast Live Tuesday Night Tea with your host, Juana. That's me. Um, before we begin, we are, I'm going to put out the housekeeping rules, even though I know some people are not on yet, but I always just do it. So, um, I am using StreamYard. I'm coming live from StreamYard so that we can view on multiple platforms. So, if you are wanting me to see any of your comments or interact with you at all, if you have questions or anything like that, I will need you to allow StreamYard to view your name so that I can see you. Okay. So with that being said, y'all, who's gonna be first? Is it Mama or Michelle, or a whole new surprise? Maybe it's gonna be Charina. Oh snap! Is Coach. Coach. Oh, my mama. She got you, Coach. She got you. So I think y'all were neck and neck. Okay, on my time it says Mama at 8:01, Coach at 8:02. So yeah. But anyway, welcome everybody. Welcome. And like I said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or whatever, try to post them in the chat. There is somewhat of a delay, so I may not see them right away. Also, hello, husband. How are you? And there's Michelle. All y'all just like boom, boom, boom. Okay. But so um I just love, and then there's Charina. See there, look at that. All y'all signed in on my thing. It says 8:02. That's so funny. But if you do have questions, I'd love to interact with y'all. So please, if you have questions or anything like that, please post them in the chat. Like I said, there may be a short delay, but I will get to it. Okay. And also, if you have questions throughout, like whenever, you can message me on the messenger not on my personal page, because I might not see that. But if you message me um, on the Live Intentionally Today page, I will get that question. And, it may be something that someone else is actually wanting to know, or just a good question, because I don't believe that there is a stupid question, because, the people suffer for a lack of knowledge. Okay. So, because you don't know somebody else might want to know that same thing. So there's no stupid questions. So just ask. And if I can't answer it, I guarantee I know somebody that knows. Okay. So anyway, tonight, y'all, we are going to be talking about relationships. Not, so I was torn. I'm going to just, because this is the transparent me. I was torn because there's so much about relationships. So, this won't be the only episode about relationships, but there's so much that I wanted to say. And I was kind of like, which direction to go in. And so, I don't know when we'll have the next few episodes about that other stuff, because what is something really important is I want to talk about codependent relationships. And I think that sometimes we tend to get into codependent relationships and not even know that we're in one. Okay. So but that's going to be that needs to be a whole thing by itself. Okay. And I'm kind of also thinking about some like Zoom webinar type situations to where we have a private group to where I can actually see y'all, not just see the chat. So we'll see what's coming up, because y'all, my theme song for the year is new. So everything's new. So we got a lot of new stuff coming. Okay. And thank you for everyone that came on and gave me a shout out, because last week, right after the podcast, I announced that I am getting my PhD. I'm going to be attending Auburn. And so, even further today, even more news, because I was provisionally accepted until they get all your transcripts. And I was chatting with Coach today about getting an immunization, but it's not really an immunization, I guess. It's just a TB test. So that was a whole fiasco. But I am not provisionally accepted anymore. I am full accepted to Auburn University. I don't know about saying the War Eagle, but because it's Roll Tide all day. We know this. I don't care what they got going on. We Roll Tide. So anyway, let's get started about these relationships, y'all. Um, so all this is still about be risky, about self-care, right? So all this is still connected to that episode about be risky. So if you haven't watched that, thank you, Charina. But if you haven't watched that episode, go back. You won't be that confused without watching it, because I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I said during that episode. And so the R in Be Risky is for relationships. So let's get real, right? Self care is not a reward, right? It's not like cheat day, because there is no such thing as cheat day on diets either, right? If you feel like you want something, you get it. So it's not a reward. It's something that you owe yourself. Okay. So it's a critical component of being able to live a happy and balanced life. Like, it should be a part of it. It should not be something that you actually have to, like, think about doing or ask permission to do. It should just be, like I said, it should just be a part of your normal everyday life, right? It's it's directly connected to our mental and physical mental health. But I mean, no matter what you want to do, it when you can do something for yourself, you feel better, right? So just like putting on earrings, and I mean, if you're not a guy, I mean, some guys do wear earrings, but putting on earrings and putting on a little lip gloss make you feel a lot better. Or, putting on a shirt or some pants or something that fit a little bit looser or something, you feel better, right? So self-care should be the same way. Like, you should feel better. But we're going to talk about how relationships fit into that. Because, when our self-care falls by the wayside, so does our overall health. Self care can help us to manage our stress, lower our risk of illness, and increase our energy. Okay, so how does that how do relationships fit into that, right? So when you have a healthy, happy self, you bring that into relationships, and your relationships suffer less. Okay, so I'm going to go back and remind you of what we talked about on the Be Risky episode. And I said Proverbs 27:17 in the Bible states, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Surround yourself with people that will be positive in your life, and you to them. You should each coach, encourage, and challenge one another. Sometimes you may need to limit your contact with some people, and that's okay. Remember, this is about your self care. Relationships that are sucking up all your oxygen can be detrimental to you, right? And if you remember, we talked about the oxygen mask. So that's what I'm talking about. They suck up all your oxygen, and that is traumatic, right? Because without oxygen, we don't live, we don't survive. So you can only control what you do, how you feel, and what you think. So be sure to communicate your boundaries and be mindful that you are the common denominator in every relationship that you have. Take time to self-reflect and see how you can add to relationships, and of course what needs to be done if they're not healthy for you. And so today we're going to focus a little bit on what does that healthy relationship look like, and how and this is where I was torn. Do I talk about the healthy relationship? So I'm like, yeah, focus, stay focused. Hey, Nick, Evelyn. So so I was like, stay focused on our topic. We're talking about healthy relationships as part of self-care. So when you think about you doing your self-care, it does help your all relationships, your relationships with your children, with your significant others, like your intimate partner, with your parents, with co-workers, supervisor. It helps you in all those types of relationships, okay? Because you feel better, you have clearer boundaries, and you set them and you maintain them, okay? So that's how the self-care part of it fits in. But let's focus a little bit more on the actual relationships, because like I was saying before, we could get into some codependent type relationships and not even know that we're in them, okay? So um one of the one of the things that I found is that um I found something that was kind of like opposite of what I was saying, because it talked about when you're in a, when you're when you are in relationships, it's like you are not an individual anymore. So when you do something for yourself, we could sometimes feel like feel some guilt or something for actually taking time for ourselves. So whenever I counsel, especially couples and families, I tell them to, like, on an average, there's 4 weeks in a month, right? On average. There are those great ones where we get 5 weeks, right? But if you look at an average month, if you if you do something for yourself that week, your partner does something like the first week, your partner does something the second week, then y'all do something together, just the two of you, the third week. And then the fourth week, you do something as a family. So you see how, like, you're not really giving and taking. And then everybody gets a turn to be alone and with themselves, other than children, right? So, well, the children do get to be alone because, maybe they get dropped off at somebody's house or whatever. And so then they get to go do something and have fun themselves. So you see how that kind of just, like, that's an easy way for me to kind of do it, for like help people set up some type of routine so that they don't feel guilty. But when you're in relationship, you do get that sense of like, oh, I'm doing too much. And there is a sense of like giving and taking, and then one person can end up taking more time than the other, or one person starts to feel like I'm doing more than the other person. And so then there could cause like a resentment in the relationship and imbalance within the relationship. But I'm here to tell you that it's important for you to take time for yourself, okay? And if those relationships are lopsided like that, you might need to revisit them. So, I mean, I don't know how else to say that. You might just need to I'm not telling you don't be friends with somebody. I'm not telling you to leave your spouse or your partner or whatever. I'm not telling you to go take your kids and drop them off at the group home. I'm just saying that you might need to revisit how you interact in those relationships, because remember that self-care means your personal and intimate relationships suffer less. So that means that you will be bringing a more balanced and happy self to the relationship. And then you have more connection because you won't be grumpy. You won't be irritable. You won't be like, crazy all the time. And people want to spend time with you. Okay. Self care by both partners in a relationship means more connection more often. And that could be whatever relationship that is, like with your children or with your significant other. Okay. It also means there's more authenticity, more empathy, and more heartfelt moments. So that means we have that intimate connection now, and we don't feel so distant from one another or disconnected. So make time for the important people in your life, because we aren't designed to be alone, right? God didn't just make Adam for himself, like, and just be there by himself. He said man should not be alone. And that's true. We don't. We need to interact with one another and have community and relationships with other people. So one thing that I found was a research. It was, I want to say, in Australia, right? And y'all know how I feel about research. Hold on, Mama's saying they feel like they're taken for granted. Yes, when there's like not a real give and take. But y'all, there's like a mosquito. I'm scared it's gonna bite me. But one of the things that we talked about, I went to a women's retreat this weekend, and I know this is a little off, but I went to a women's retreat this weekend. And so, yes, my daughter and I, we took time for ourselves. We built community together with one another, individually and with another group of like-minded women, because that's where the iron sharpens iron, right? So it was such a great time and so much information being shared and breakthroughs and all that goodness, right? So that you could come back recharged and energized. But one of the things that we talked about was that, like, in relationship, we were talking about just having friends as a relationship, just like a friend to friend. But, sometimes we feel that guilt of, I'm doing something more, like, like I might pay for everything when we go out, because I know that you don't have that much money or something, right? Or I feel like you pay for everything and I don't have that much money. But then there's the other aspect. It was such a beautiful thing, that one of the women was sharing, that like she felt like, she didn't feel worthy to have the friend that she had, because her friend has more money. Her friend is able to spend more and do those types of things, and she will just cover her in that way, right? But what she does, what she has to offer and bring to that relationship, is prayer. And she prays for her friend and she uplifts her and encourages her, prays with and for. Okay. And so that's a beautiful thing. And so we got to remember that we have time, talents, and treasures. So I might be good on treasures this month, but you might be better on time. So give me some of listening ear, and so then we don't feel taken for granted. But that's important about having those kinds of conversations with your intimate partners, um, with your friends, with whoever that is, that relationship. Okay, so back to this study, and like I said, statistics are not. I don't believe they're accurate, but they give us a good view about what's going on. So in this one study, the findings showed that we need close relationships in order to thrive, okay? To thrive, to live, and to grow, okay? It says friends help celebrate the good times and provide support through the bad times. They even help us live longer. And so this Australian study followed 1,500 people aged 70 and older over a 10 period time. So that was, so they started out being 70 or older, and then end up being at least 80 or older the 10 years later. So the researchers found that those with the strongest network of friends and confidants were 22% less likely to die during the study than those with the weakest network of good friends. And so to me, that's important, this whole thing, that the key takeaway for me is having good friendships, having healthy friendships, okay? Not where you're feeling drained all the time, okay? And then if you're an introvert, they also go on to say that contrary to popular belief, both introverts and extroverts benefit equally from good relationships. And you see they keep saying good relationships, good friendships. And so that, that's really important, because we can have relationships, we can have acquaintances, we can have all that, but if they're not healthy, how are they serving you? Right? They're sucking up your oxygen. So it's so important for your self-care that you do build good, healthy relationships, okay? And with that, that does mean having all those boundaries in place with people, having your own boundaries so that they aren't sucking up your oxygen, because they'll feel like it's okay, because I know we all heard that we teach people how to treat us. That's so true. If you don't stand up for yourself, who is? So just make sure that the relationships that you do build, they are good and healthy. And so I know that with the introverts and extroverts, the size of your circle, might be smaller, but that's okay, because if you're an introvert and you don't, it spazzes you out. It's not good self-care to have 15 people around you when you just need two good solid people, right? That's okay, because that looks different from an introvert to an extrovert, okay? Some people like large, diverse networks of people so that they can, I know somebody that could fix my car. I know somebody that does finances. I know somebody that could babysit my kids. You see what I'm saying? We're all going to be able to serve one another in those relationships. And that's okay. If I just know one good person that might know somebody else, I'm okay with that, for real. So, some people do benefit from having just that small of a close friendship, but we all need them. It also says that researchers have noted that while we adapt to changes in circumstance, such as winning the lottery, fairly quickly, we continue to derive positive emotions from close relationships over the long term. So, building healthy relationships is a good investment in your well being. And so, also, I want to add that they put in this article that I read that in addition to longevity, research has credited friendship and social connection with boosting happiness, reducing stress and stress related health problems, as we already talked about, increasing sense of belonging, connection, and purpose. It also lowers risk of mental illness, which we said, improving self worth, right? And that's probably tied to that belonging, connection, and purpose. It also helps cope with traumas such as divorce, serious illness, job loss, or the death of a loved one. Can you imagine going through some of that stuff all alone by yourself? If you thought you was depressed, yeah, you'd be real depressed without having somebody. It also encourages healthy lifestyle habits such as exercise or quitting smoking. And we talked about healthy exercise habits last time, right? Because that was the E and be risky. We talked about that and having an accountability partner, right? So that's where that kind of comes in because they can give you that encouraging word, or remind you like, hey, you said that, or you smoke too much or something, like you said you was trying to do one a day, not three a day, whatever that looks like for smoking rather. So yeah, so it encourages healthy lifestyle habits and exercise stuff. So that accountability piece. It also promotes growth and learning. That's where this thriving comes in, and providing fun. Because we all know I could go to the movies and have a good time by myself. I could go to dinner and have a good time by myself. If you ask my mama, she'll say it's because there's a few of me up in here, but whatever. I can still do that, right? But it's so much more fun to have somebody, right? You have those memorable moments, those intimate connections of creating heartfelt moments and memories, right? When you can have another person. So I wanted to kind of go over some of that, and just remember too, you guys, that like your healthy relationships. Remember my acronym about the MEAT: the money, energy, attention, and time. If you are feeling like you're putting too much of that into um, a relationship, that will kind of go into maybe that codependent stuff that we're going to talk about another time. But just evaluate those relationships. I've been working with a few women that are going through divorce, and let me move my screen real quick. And so some of them, they did have a network of people, but then they also realize they're kind of being codependent as well in relationships. And sometimes those people serve us for that moment, that time, that season, whatever that is. They serve us in that time period, right? And so we have to reevaluate relationships. And if we feel like they are taking too much of our money, energy, attention, our time, they're sucking that oxygen out of us, then that's what we need to pay attention to, because we start to get depleted. Like, if we had a balloon and you're full of air, and then all the air just starts, you're just like flappy again, right? So, pay attention to that. And sometimes you may need to distance yourself from those relationships, or at least you owe it to have a conversation with that person about the relationship, to let them know that, hey, I'm in a different place right now. Instead of just ghosting them, because ghosting them ain't right. Like, I mean, that's some character stuff right there. You just ghost folks. But I do know people that do just cut folks off. I do have a friend that, I often feel guilty sometimes because I'm like, man, I haven't talked to them in a while. And I'm like, they always seem to text me first. But I know I make myself busy, right? And I do these things myself. So I'm not being a good friend. But I have to evaluate. Am I just not being a good friend? And am I avoiding something? So these are the things I'm talking about. Be curious about that, about the relationship. Like, are you avoiding them? Because and I'm not avoiding my friend, I'm just saying. Um, but if you're avoiding them, figure that out. Like, why? Because maybe they're always just negative and they're sucking the oxygen, and you're like, I can't breathe. And so, I just want you guys to take away having a healthy relationship, okay? And what that looks like. It's not you always doing something and then they're not doing anything. There should be a give and take in the relationship. And so that's why it's important to talk about it. And I know I'm repeating myself because this is important, that, if you feel like you're doing something too much, talk to them about it. Because if they're really your friend, they'll tell you like, girl, no, dude, nah, bro. Like, I can't go get my hair cut, but you be cutting it for me, like, and, so I buy you something to eat. I mean, it's bartering. And I know that that sounds bad. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how it sounds to you, but it might sound bad. But it should be a give and a take, not just a take, 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 take. And even in intimate relationships, if your partner does not want you to go off and do something by yourself alone or with some other people, you need to address that too, because then there's some other things that might be going on there. Um, and sometimes we have like we're afraid to have healthy relationships because we don't know what healthy relationships look like. So it's hard to like worry about loyalty and things like that, because you tend to want to just stay in a friendship even though it's not serving you in any kind of way, and you're not serving that person in any kind of way. And when I'm saying serving, I'm talking about being helpful, open, honest, transparent, and it's helpful to you, not draining. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about when I'm serving, not just like, yeah, I hang out with Evelyn because she always pay for lunch. Not stuff like that. That's not a healthy relationship. That's not a healthy mindset to have about a relationship. But in these relationships, especially like with intimate partners, we feel guilty sometimes about like getting up and doing something for ourselves. But when you have that conversation, like one of the articles I read, the guy was talking about how like it would frustrate him that his wife would lay in the bed till like 9 o'clock, and he got up early, and he was like, why am I doing all this and she's still laying in the bed? So he's having all these thoughts and started to have negative thoughts, right? So they had a conversation about it, and she said, it's important for me that I get this maximum rest so that I can be present with you and the children and whatever else we're doing for the rest of the day. So she stays up later doing other things as well. So if they hadn't had that conversation, he would have not known that. He would have had resentment about their relationship, resentment towards her, and had these negative thoughts just harboring and interfering in their relationship. So that's why I'm talking about it's important, because it might not be anything to do with you. It might be all them that, you know, like I'm feeling some kind of way, but it don't have nothing to do with you, you know. And we do personalize things a lot in relationships. So that's why it's so important to talk. talk to people, communicate. And remember, communication is not just you talking or talking to respond, it's also receiving, listening actively. Okay. So, do y'all have any questions about anything? Because we are at 8:30. And I'm learning to be more respectful of everybody's time. Mine, yours, mine's, everybody's. Okay. So if y'all don't have any questions, I do thank you all for coming on. And yeah, we got big things popping. PhD uploading. And I want to shout out my girl Evelyn. She is PhD'd. She is finally finished, y'all. She is Dr. Evelyn. So, and she's published. So I love it. I know this is not just a Black platform, but I had to uplift my folks, because it's not always that we get this kind of, we don't do these things, and if we are, we don't talk about them, so I just want to shout her out. I have some other friends. They haven't really publicized theirs yet, but they're also in the PhD program right now at a different school. So I'm just excited about what this year's bringing for us. And so, as always, y'all, this has been good for me too. Thanks, Coach. He said good stuff. Mama said great job. So this has been great for me. And I hope you learned something about having a healthy relationship tonight and how relationships are still important. Just be curious about them and ask yourself those questions about how are they serving you or why you're in this relationship. Okay. And know that you can still take time in an intimate relationship for yourself, or even if it's just a Michelle said we don't talk about Bruno. I'll have to talk to y'all about that. But yeah, that was one of my acronyms, and I know y'all know that movie, Encanto, right? So anyway, this has just been really good, and I hope you learned something. Okay, and just evaluate those relationships. And before I go, it's kind of like the rocket ship. I know that's so cliche, but the rocket ship goes up and there's the boosters on the sides. But when it gets to a certain altitude, the boosters fall off. So maybe that's what some of those relationships got to look like too. They got you to this place, but you're not there anymore. You're on a new level. Okay. So you're in something else. So don't be upset about if you have to change some things about your relationships. Okay. So, as we always say, and I got it, I got it right this time, y'all, because I don't know, it's hot. We ain't turned our air on yet, and but I am here. It is now, and I am alive and going towards my PhD. What? So, y'all have a great night. I love you guys, and I will see you next week when we're going to talk about intentionality. So hang out on the page because I'm gonna be posting some stuff, and I will see y'all next time. Good night.